With a week of campaign rallies under their belt, the Harris-Walz ticket is ramping up now to the Democratic National Convention. Once viewed as a Hail Mary to revive Joe Biden's reelection prospects, next week's gathering will now serve as a show of force for Vice President Harris and will include speeches from former Presidents Clinton and Obama, as well as President Biden. With Democrats driving the headlines for weeks now, former President Trump is off message and off the trail. For the second straight week, he has just one rally scheduled. And amid a flurry of reporting about his struggling campaign, Trump is set to do an interview on X tonight with the social media site's owner, billionaire Trump backer Elon Musk. NBC's Aaron Gilchrist joins us now from Washington. Also with us, senior political correspondent for The Hill, Amy Parnes, Democratic strategist and former Clinton advisor Richard Goodstein, and former advisor to two Republican House Speakers, Brendan Buck. Aaron, Vice President Harris is back there in D.C. today. What does her week ahead look like?
Well, this week, Anna, is going to look very different from the week we saw last week for the Harris campaign. We know that the vice president is expected to only have a videotaped appearance that will air at a conference of government employees, a union representing government employees later this week. And then she will appear with President Biden on Thursday in Maryland. That's an official event as opposed to a campaign event where we understand they are going to talk about the work that the administration has done to try to lower costs for Americans. And at this point, that's all we expect to see from Vice President Harris this week. Of course, we lead into the DNC. It's going to be happening starting next Monday. And we're coming off of a week of the vice president and her new running mate, the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, crisscrossing the country, hitting 5 battleground states, wrapping up over the weekend in Las Vegas after that stop in Arizona out west, and rallying thousands upon thousands of supporters there. I can tell you I was at both events, and these arenas were really packed with people who were there to see this new Democratic ticket, to lend their voices in support of the new Democratic ticket, which we heard in very boisterous ways while we were there in those arenas. And this week, we did hear from the vice president on Saturday that this week she expects to be laying out her economic policy platform. We know, obviously, this was a get-to-know-you tour that the vice president was on last week, really for people to see her and her new running mate, for them to get to know each other as well. And now it's the question of what would a President Harris do? And so we expect to see that economic policy platform laid out at some point this week, Anna. And then next week during the DNC, that's when people will really be looking to see all of what a Harris administration would do, how it might be different from what President Biden has done already, and looking to see exactly what they can expect if they were to go out and vote for Vice President Harris in November to be the next president of the United States, Anna.
Aaron Gilchrist, thank you. Richard, this swing state rollout last week, you've got the Democratic National Convention kicking off on Monday, a week from today. How can the Harris campaign sort of capitalize, keep the momentum going in this week in between?
Well, certainly all the buzz has been incredibly positive when you think about where she was 3 weeks ago. Today is when everybody was coalescing around her. She was down in the polls against Trump. Now, with each passing day, that spread that she's ahead is slightly more and more. We saw the New York Times story having her 4 points up in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And again, it just seems like what she's tapped into is this feeling that when it was Biden, he was too old. When it was Trump, he was obnoxious and criminal. And now she's young and vital and has ideas, and she's appealing to the middle class. And I just think she's got a good pick with Walz. I think she just has to keep it going. And typically, your party's convention gives you a real boost. Bill Clinton went into the 92 convention behind both George H.W. Bush and Ross Perot, came out ahead and never looked back. And I think that she will end this time next week with a real head of steam at the end of the convention. Well,
we'll see what she does this week, because at this point, she does have that momentum. We mentioned the polling. On the meantime, we have the Trump campaign going through a turbulent time, I think it's fair to say. Amy, you had, these kind of off-the-rails press events that Trump has held. His campaign said they were hacked. You have this new polling from the New York Times, and I do want to put it up there, shows Harris up by 4 points with likely voters in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, still within the margin of error, but a clear shift since President Biden dropped out. What are you hearing, Amy, from GOP insiders?
So they are frustrated. They feel like the former president could be doing a lot more. Specifically, he could be staying on message and not going off message and talking about issues of race. If he came out and talked about the economy and inflation and the border and other issues issues that they feel like would really rally these independents, they think that that would be serving him. But everything else that he's doing right now, it shows that he's flailing and he's not doing the things that he should be doing to kind of gain that momentum that Harris is getting right now.
He's trying to steal back the spotlight, Brendan. Trump has this one-on-one with Elon Musk tonight. He's touting it as the interview of the century. Could this venue offer the type of reset he wants? What are you expecting from this?
Well, if you're looking to be disciplined, which I completely agree with Amy, it's not that he's not talking about the economy. It's not that he's not talking about the border. It's that he's talking about all these other crazy things as well that distract you. As we know, Elon Musk tends to increasingly delve into conspiracy theories, promote things that are just simply not true. And, you know, if you're looking to have a disciplined campaign, which this was for a little while, I don't know that talking to Elon Musk is how you do that. I imagine we'll be all over the place again. And rather than talking about the choice that they want to frame up, which is the country's heading in the wrong direction, do you want to send the country further to the left, all of the record of the Biden administration? Instead, I'm sure they're going to end up talking about crowd sizes and AI and all kinds of things that don't help him in any meaningful way.
He does really care about crowd size, doesn't he? In fact, Richard, he's now falsely claiming that the pictures the Harris campaign is putting out from their events are fake when it comes to how big the crowds are, claiming they're AI generated. Again, false claims. We have journalists who are covering those events and can confirm the crowds are quite large. I guess, what do you make of his obsession and this new strategy to just say it's all fake?
So it raises questions about whether Trump has gone from being merely dishonest to delusional. And does he possibly believe this? Does he possibly believe that whacked out story about Willie Brown and the helicopter that has been disproved in so many different ways? It's embarrassing. And yet I think the Trump people are standing by it. So, because I think they don't want to stand up to him. And once he says something, that's gospel for them. So I just think that from the Harris standpoint, she looks modulated, she looks level-headed, and Trump, with each passing public comment, looks crazier and crazier. Is this somebody you want to put in charge of the nuclear codes? I think that's not an unfair question to ask, for her to ask the American voters when he says just absolutely crazy stuff like about the attendance at that rally for her.
Amy, let's talk about policy for a minute. We're anticipating an economic policy platform to be revealed soon from the Harris campaign. She did bring up one economic proposal at an event this weekend. Let's listen.
It is my promise to everyone here, when I am president, we will continue our fight for working families of America. Including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
That last part, Trump previously announced a similar plan when it comes to taxing hospitality workers and their tips specifically. Are you surprised to hear her following suit?
No, I mean, I think that she has to talk more about minimum wage, and she has to talk about inflation and the economy. And that's one thing I've been hearing from Democrats. They're a little bit scared that she hasn't come out, and of course she is going to do that this week. But she really needs to come out with a strong economic plan if she wants to win over voters who are kind of skeptical about where the economy is, specifically higher prices right now. And so I heard from a lot of people who are trying to help her kind of form that messaging. And of course, she's brought Gene Sperling in to help with that. And you're going to, I think, hear her talk more about that in the days to come, because they know that this is the key issue. Now that things have settled, now that the party has kind of rallied around her and there's this surge, she has to turn more to the economy and other policy issues.
Obviously, that one policy that Trump had put out there was pretty popular, Brendan, and Trump still leads on the economy, but a series of recent polls show that gap is narrowing. What do you think is behind that?
Well, she's just had a great 3 weeks, and that's going to show up everywhere, I think. But I do think this week is really important for her to put a little more meat on the bone, a little more substance out there. If you watch the coverage right now, you would think that she is trouncing Trump right now, but she's not. She's probably a slight favorite, but this is still going to be a close race. And I think you do owe it to voters to tell them what you're going to do. That sounds like a nice sort of quaint principle of democracy, but it's also, I think, important politically. there are a lot of people who will never vote for Donald Trump under any circumstance, but there are still some people, probably people who are going to decide this election, who care about the substance and want to know what each of these candidates is going to do for them. Now, Donald Trump has not done a very good job laying out his plan, which should be an opportunity for Harris to lay out hers. But if she doesn't, it is also, I think, a risk for her, because Donald Trump is going to continue to try to define her in a certain way, and she needs to fill that space before he solidifies what people think about her, because they are still learning a lot about her. We know a lot about her, but most voters are still learning.
The forgotten party.
My fellow citizens,
it is strong.
It's my duty to report
the true problems of our nation.
Vigorously developed, this resource will be of great benefit.
Where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause.
I will be eternally grateful for your support.